Hello and welcome back to the Football Heritage podcast. I'm your host, Rory Bryce, and today I'm joined by author and Chester City fan, Steve Hill. How's it going, mate? Good to have you on.
I'm okay, chaps. I just watched 5 days of cricket, but absolutely no game whatsoever. So I'm just trying to get over that. I mean, cricket doesn't hurt like football. It's just kind of entertainment, and then you lose and you go, oh shit, and then you sort of move on. They don't sort of linger in your psyche for years like football matches, I find. Yeah, I'd rather we stuck it up the Aussies, but we failed to. But there's another 4 games to go. There's the Ashes, of course.
No, I suppose it doesn't hurt in the same way, really, does it? And especially not with this story. Today we're going to be talking about Chester FC, or Chester City FC, and the Phoenix club that formed in its wake. Really interesting but emotional and quite controversial story at times as well. Just because of the circumstances of their demise and their rise back up the divisions as well. Chester FC were founded in 1885 after two clubs in the area merged. They joined the local combination league, and their biggest rivals became Wrexham. Obviously, as we all know them are today, a lot bigger and a lot more bankrolled than they were then, which is a rivalry that still exists today and is very hotly contested. After a few stadium moves, Chester finally settled into the long-term home at Sealand Road. A place that you were quite fond of, Steve, and where you got your first taste of watching Chester, wasn't it?
I still consider that home. I mean, when I first started going, my first season was 83, 84. Ironically, that's when they first started calling themselves Chester City. They added a city on. But yeah, I saw the last 6 seasons at Sealand Road before it was demolished. And I think that for me is still the spiritual home. I think when you fall in love with a football club, I think you're actually falling in love with the stadium to an extent. I mean, it was an absolute pigsty, but it was our pigsty. It was near a sewage work, so there was a stench of human feces for most home games, only matched by that on the pitch. But they're still the games that stick out in your memory. I think you're just remembering being young as much as anything. Not that it was good. It was just exciting and full of just the stench of cigarette smoke, foul language, a lot of unpleasantness. Which is appealing to a young teenager. I think. You'd be lying if you said it wasn't exciting.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's part and parcel of going to the football at that age. You're going with your mates, you're hearing all these things you're not allowed to hear, doing all these things that you're not necessarily allowed to do or that you've been warned off of doing. So, yeah, you're absolutely right that, it's meant to be exciting and that's what it is. But no, definitely the aesthetic and the character of a stadium 100% plays into your memories and fondness for a place, doesn't it? It's really some of the best ways to remember it. In terms of the club's history, they dotted around the Combination League at this point, and also in the Lancashire League, and they were also founders of the Cheshire County League themselves until they finally joined the Football League in 1931. So it was actually a bit of a wait for them to get into the Football League, which it's not unheard of for clubs at this level and at this period of time. It does sometimes take them a wee while to settle into football leagues around the globe, just depending on where they are. But during that time, they enjoyed a few notable cup wins, most importantly, and I suppose prominently, the Welsh Cup 3 times in 1908, 1933 and 1947, which of course clubs within the English Football League system were allowed to compete in. They beat Wrexham in the final on at least one occasion, which is always good when you beat your rivals in a cup final. But jumping forward a bit, in the 1964-65 season, they scored 119 goals with 5 strikers at the club, bagging 20 goals each that season, which is an insane return when you think about it.
There's a famous picture in the current stadium. That might have been a season where all 5 forwards, obviously the young forwards, but I think they all got 20 goals. Famous picture of them all hammering a ball into the net. It's actually staged. Some of the balls are hanging on the net. It's actually slightly fake, but yeah, I always have a look at that picture whenever I'm in the Legends Lounge. Whenever I do the corporate at the Diva Stadium, that is a very famous picture. It might have even been taken by Gary Talbot, who was a striker turned photographer. Well, unless he was one of the strikers, I'm not sure.
It's actually quite cool in its own way. I'm a fan of a mural within a football club or at a stadium, so interesting as well that he, took part in it. Obviously I'm not too sure if he was one of the strikers himself that scored all of those goals, but the fact that he then turned photographer and was able to put that picture and that kind of thing up is brilliant. So yeah, it's actually quite cool. Good historic part of the club's life that's been brought to life to commemorate what was, let's not lie, it was an iconic achievement, wasn't it? But what was even more mad than the goal return was the fact that though you've managed to score that amount of goals with that return from your strikers, the club somehow didn't manage to get promoted that season. And indeed, Chester didn't win their first promotion, I think, until the 1974-75 season, and it was on goal average as well, which is, very, very tight. so literally by the slimmest of margins. You also won the Debenhams Cup 1 year too, which was a pretty short-lived football competition contested by the two sides from outside the top divisions of the Football League to have progressed the furthest in the FA Cup. Always an interesting contest to look at, and sadly the Debenhams Cup was actually stolen as well. I think it was only found quite recently. There was only ever 2 editions of the Debenhams Cup, and Chester won one of them, which was the first one, which is a pretty nice little historical point as well. And then, of course, you managed to get your hands on Ian Rush.
I just missed the Rushy years. I missed Rushy by a couple of years, but yeah, that's all Chester was known for a long time, for selling Ian Rush. 300,000, Jesus. I mean, I don't know what that is in today's money, but that is some good money. Rush, he doesn't necessarily get talked about now. Rush is the best striker of 1980s. But they obviously saw something in him. I mean, I wonder if we'd have some kind of sell-on bonus would have been nice. But yeah, I mean, a club like that, you can't turn down £300,000, I guess. But yeah, what a buy for them.
No, absolutely. I mean, the rest is history, as they said, very much so in this case. But then in 1984, sadly, Steve, Chester finished bottom of the Football League, but it was quite important for another reason, wasn't it?
That was my first season. I remember it very well. We beat Darlington 2-1 with a brace of Peter Zellen penalties. Conceded a last-minute goal. 1-2-1 in front of 981 fans. I remember I was the one. And then, we finished bottom of the league. I've got the league table here, in fact. Bottom of the league with just with Hartlepool, Rochdale, Halifax, and Wrexham 20th. I thought the only way is up at that point. I thought I may as well start from the bottom. It can't get worse. I mean, obviously I was hideously wrong, as we'll discover.
No, it literally, well, you were thinking that at the time, but obviously, as we'll come on to talk about, sadly, it did. And as you've alluded to there, it did indeed get worse. But what's important is that this is the point where your journey with Chester pretty much begins, isn't it?
Yeah, I moved to Chester in 1982 from North Wales, firstly, with very little interest in football. I think we'd beaten Leeds that season, which kind of made the national press. So I think that's the first time I realised there was actually a football club in the town. And you could almost, apocryphally hear the roar from the stadium while we were having a kick about. I thought that was really interesting. Got my man to take me down there, beat Darlow. And then didn't look back. Just went to every game that season, finished bottom. I think I went to every home game the next season. I think I missed maybe one home game while I lived in Chester. Perversely, a 4-4 draw against Bury I missed. The only game I missed while living in the town because there was some fucking event at school. Just still furious about that. But as I say, that was the season they became Chester City. They added a city on just for no apparent reason. I think maybe to reflect that Chester was a city. It was a dismal time. Yeah, Sealand Road, an incredible classic old ground, massive floodlights. Just the stench, sort of misery, cigarette smoke, foul language. Immediately just stepping. But nowadays, it seems like it should be in black and white. But at the time, just very exciting a glimpse into an adult world, really. Just pretty angry people hurling abuse at a really, really shit football team. And here we are, 39 seasons on. Not a great deal has changed.
Very much a supporter for your sins, as they always say. In some ways it hasn't. It's just a bit shit as well that your journey with Chester started off in the worst possible way with a relegation as well, and from the Football League too.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, nowadays you'd be straight down, but the ridiculous thing called re-election, which I always say, assumably that the chairman get together with a whiskey and a cigar and go, Hartlepool's sake, Chester's sake, you scratch my back. I don't know how that will work. Nobody ever got relegated.
I don't know if I'm surprised.
It was a closed shop till 87, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I'm surprised the election and re-election to leagues lasted as long as it did, because it just seems like there are so many things that can go wrong. There are so many things that can influence it. I had no idea how it managed to last as long as it did.
Who's ever going to vote someone out? Because it's coming back.
Exactly. Well, if you're sitting at the head of it and you're the fan of a club, then you're immediately going to be against the rivals. I don't trust anyone not to be neutral. So
it's turkeys voting for Christmas or not.
Yeah, exactly. It's such an archaic and bizarre way of doing things. I can maybe
went on to the 80s. I mean, luckily for me, yeah. Otherwise, we'd have been in non-league immediately. I'd have only ever seen 7 league games, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I can maybe understand the way back in the late 1800s and stuff, but coming into
because teams are kind of unstable or didn't have the grounds perhaps. But
yeah,
a throwback.
Yeah, exactly, a throwback. But luckily, he did get re-elected again, and at this point, we're under the stewardship of Harry McNulty, who you remember quite fondly, don't you?
Uh, Harry McNally, yeah, Harry McNally is still revered. I mean, the home end of the current ground is called the Harry McNally Stand. So yeah, so the next season we finished 16th, and then yeah, enter Harry McNally. Also enter a young Everton striker on loan, Stuart Rimmer. Got a perfect hat trick in his first game against Southend in a 5-1 win. Southend managed by Bobby Moore at the time, who was advised where to stick his World Cup medal. Uh, he looked good, so we signed Rimmer permanently. Went on to become the record scorer. And the next season, Harry McNally took us up. I think we finished second to Swindon in that season. We clinched relegation with a 0-0 draw at Leyton Orient. My main memory is trying to get on the pitch and a copper pulling me off a fence. The days when you had big, massive, big fences to stop you getting on the pitch. But yeah, we sealed promotion. So only my second full season, we went up into the third division.
Brilliant stuff. And then in 1990, you moved out of your stadium, sadly, and things started going a wee bit downhill from here. And I don't know if it was the stadium move that kind of exacerbated the issues that Chester have, but I suppose it's a pretty good reference point for how the club done moving forward, kind of more off the field than on the field, if that makes sense. Like, even though the events surrounding it might not have been the turning point, I suppose this is probably the reference point for when things started going to shit, basically. How did you and other fans feel about the stadium move at this time, out of curiosity?
Insane. So yeah, the Diva Stadium, the Sealand Road came to an end for whatever reason. I mean, Chester's been mismanaged for years. So eventually the owners just sold it for redevelopment. The last game was pretty emotional. I saw some YouTube footage of the last ever game recently. So we just stayed up that season under McNally, won the last game 2-0. Had a piece of turf which survived for about a year. And then we're looking for somewhere to ground share because it's a 2-year plan to build the next stadium. So we looked at Crewe, we even looked at Wrexham, which was a non-starter. Quite possibly looked at Tranmere, possibly mentioned. And then someone pulls up Macclesfield, where we actually played in an FA Cup game not that long previously, I think. Macclesfield being 42 miles away each way. Absolutely nonsensical. So yeah, every Saturday, a flurry of buses set off down these country roads. Pre-sat-nav times, people are just trying to find Macclesfield. You see Chester fans coming the other way down the road. Nobody knows how to get there. I remember the very first game. I was paying in. I just saw the game being kicked off. I think I saw Graham Barrow take the kick-off at home game against Exeter. Just about got there. Bus driver got lost. And on it went on for 2 years. And then crowds dwindled to, as you can imagine, below 1,000. But yeah, Macclesfield now is a fairly decent ground. With a pump for the money. We got Savage at the helm. Yeah, that was a preposterous 2 years, but incredibly, Harry McNally kept us up. I mean, we had some big teams came to visit. Birmingham City came. But yeah, astonishingly managed to stay up and then move back to Chester and got relegated in our first season at the Diva Stadium, I think.
And I'm guessing that Macclesfield then was the only feasible option for the club at the time. Seems quite far away. It's not exactly a place associated with Chester at all, or the club, so, it seems a bit weird moving all the way out there.
I can't think of one. I mean, I guess you can't really play at the ground of your rivals. Like I say, our key rivals are Wrexham, Tranmere and Crewe, who would not be that keen to have 2,000 Chester fans turning up every other week. I always think that, the Northwich teams, maybe they looked at that. Who knows? It still baffles me. I mean, it's just about in the same county. I think it's in technically, but the entire other side of it. And, very difficult to access by road or train, really. I was living in Liverpool at the time, so I would get a train to Chester, get a lift, 4 of us in a car. It was a full day out to get to a home game. Amazing the club survived, to be honest. Reasons for the fan base to keep going. I think there was a game, a Freight Rover Trophy game that got maybe 400 fans, 406 or something, sticks in the lines. Really desperate times. I mean, this is a third division team getting less than 500 people for a home game. Absolute survival times. I mean, you can't really build a squad on those kind of incomes as well. So yeah, a miracle that McNally kept us in the division for those 2 seasons.
Well, he did at that point, but sadly, eventually, you did get relegated, but managed to bounce straight back up. So, with the stadium move and maybe other things beginning to come to the fore, must have been a bit of a roller coaster following the club at that stage.
Yeah, so we came back to the Diva Stadium. That's when I started stewarding. I was a steward in the first season at the Diva Stadium. I think McNally finally got sacked after 7 years. I'm pretty sure we got relegated in our first season at Diva, and then Graham Barrow, a great player. I think he took us back up. A fantastic team actually. Yeah, he took us back. I mean, I can't remember when fourth division and third division became League One and League Two. I mean, the timeline is blurred on that, but let's call it the third tier and the fourth tier. Back into the third tier.
Yeah, unfortunately though, this is when things start getting much worse for Chester, isn't it? Because in 1998, unfortunately, it's announced that the club has entered administration and you were bought over by an American businessman called Terry Smith. What was he like?
He promised the earth and delivered earth. He said he would get us out of the league, and he was right. We went the other way. He was like, championship football within 2 years, the whole thing. He had some vague history in American football, and talked a good story. Basically, he was funded by his dad. His dad had some money, and he bought Chester because he liked the penguins at the zoo. He went to Chester Zoo and like big fan of penguins.
That's a good reason. That's a good reason as any, wouldn't you say?
I mean, you could write a book on that. I've actually written 2 entire articles before for 2 on that. I wrote one at the time, and then I wrote one a couple of years ago, like 20 years on.
It's incredible when you think that stories and things like that only come up every so often, and then you realise they actually come up more often than you think, and it's people who have absolutely no idea how to run a football club. They probably have a little less of an idea about business than they think. Incredible.
Yeah, I think one of his famous quotes is that I think coaching is pretty much the same in all sports. So, of course, made himself a manager. Ratcliffe walked out and he said, I'll do it.
My God.
But yeah, we were kind of a laughingstock at the time. There's a great documentary on YouTube. He introduced some bizarre stuff, playing invisible football, training without a ball, the Lord's Prayer before kickoff, 3 captains, offense, defense, and midfield. It's kind of like a Ted Lasso, but...
Did you ever get the chance to meet him?
Did meet him, and I also interviewed him on the phone for, 2 sides of a C90 tape at least. And he was not somebody with a huge grip on reality. Something he would just say, "Well, you may say that." Well, I am saying it because it's written in black and white. We lost this game 5. It was a game we lost to Leyton Orient. I think it was the last game of the millennium. And I always bang on about this. I think we're obviously losing in the first half. So 20 minutes in, he makes a treble substitution. Like Terry, that's it. They can't come back on. This isn't a special team. It's not NFL. That's it. That's all the subs gone. Yep, we were losing. I thought I'd have to do something. I went on to lose 5-1. But yeah, by Christmas we were absolutely rock bottom. Then he did bring in a manager. He brought in Ian Atkins, an experienced manager, and that became the Great Escape season, which is this T-shirt hanging up there. Funny enough, sponsored by QuickSave. Yeah, we won an incredible run, and I think we needed 1 point from the last 2 games and lost them both 1-0. Went down with a 1-0 defeat at home to Peterborough. After an absolute rollercoaster. I mean, it's one of the seasons you remember more than the others. It was just an absolute ride with the madness of Smith, and then an absolute chance to actually stay up and then balls it in the last 2 games.
Yeah, one of the big bottle jobs. I think you could probably say that. So in 2000, you fell out of the Football League again for the first time, unfortunately. And despite coming back up in 03-04, the club were plagued by constant financial difficulties and strife at this stage.
So yes, Smith did eventually sell out. Against all advice, he sold. I'm not going to say his name. He sold out to a Merseyside boxing promoter, who, he wasn't all he said, but he threw some money at it. Nobody knows where he got his money from. There's speculation about that. And yeah, we had a fantastic team and absolutely romped that league, and people enjoyed it. And then, we got back. Yeah, first of all, non-league was just a shock. I mean, I know non-league now is quite fashionable. It's on BT Sport, but that in the year 2000, you've never really heard of non-league teams apart from the old cup run. The first game at Ruston and Diamonds got turned over 2-0, took a massive following, and this is it. This was non-league. And you end up going to these, tin pot grounds that we thought at the time. I mean, obviously, moving further on, it gets even more tin pot. Did get back in the Football League, and then you sort of find yourself sat back at Mansfield again, thinking, is it that big a difference? And then we were in the league for another 4 years, I think.
Yeah, and that title was won in style under the tutelage of manager Mark Wright when he was in charge, and that was quite an enjoyable spell. But I mean, it wasn't the only time that he was manager, was it?
Mark Wright, I think he managed. I think he managed us on four non-consecutive occasions. Yeah, I mean Mark Wright. I mean, you know, an England international, a World Cup player, I mean, big time player. Really, he doesn't hasn't done much else in management, but yeah, he took us up with a decent budget, some great players. Darryl Clare knocking in goals. Defence got a guy at Phil Bollins. Yeah, I mean, a really good team. Great to watch. So he romped that league. Beat Hereford second place, I think. I think we went to Hereford on the last day of the season, having already clinched it, having already beaten them into second place. So we just went there like a party atmosphere. You know, lost, but it didn't matter. I think you're winning and it means very little was the chant from the away end.
Would be quite a sore one to hear as well, because at the end of the day, things off the field were worsening, and I suppose the stick that was being used to beat you guys with at the point was, well, it doesn't matter if you're going to win because you're going to go bust and not exist anymore anyway. You did get promoted, but then the day before your first game back in the Football League, Mark Wright leaves. Did you think it was a case that he had seen the writing on the wall, or had things just become a bit of a merry-go-round and a circus at that point?
Gone. Who knows? I mean, Mark Wright came and left. I honestly think he was manager 3 or 4 times. Yeah, he left on the eve of the season. I think even so, we went to Peterborough United away and won that game. I think without a manager. Yeah. God knows what happened there. Yeah. So who do we get in instead of Mark Wright? Is this when we started just getting a series of managers?
Yeah, I mean, it did. It literally just did become this kind of weird, sort of really bizarre circus for a while. Definitely a managerial merry-go-round. That's probably the epitome of the term. And then in this series of managers, as you mentioned, Ian Rush came in, and I suppose at the time, you know, I don't know. I was very young at this point, so I'm not too sure how Ian Rush's managerial career went. I know it wasn't particularly good or prolific, but at the time, maybe this could have been viewed as a little bit of fan service by the board to try and get an old fan favourite back in to steady the ship and, you know, take the club on, blah, 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 blah. We've heard all this kind of conjecture and nonsense before. Didn't really work out that way, though, did it?
Ian Rush came in. Yeah, he wasn't a great manager. It wasn't as good a manager as he was a player. Kept us up a bit, yeah. Very surgy football under Rush. Not a really time to be honest. Yeah, it was. I just recall it being a really turgid period, mate. You scrape the odd 1-0 here and there, perhaps. Yeah, I mean, for a striker, you'd think we'd have some kind of ambition to get goals, but that didn't seem to be the case.
No, definitely not. Well, Rush left. Mark Wright came back twice, but things never stabilised, and the club fell out of the Football League once again.
Yeah, I think we got relegated at Aldershot. I think I remember getting the train back from Aldershot. Well, I actually went to see the Fall in Camden that evening, which slightly cheered me up. But yeah, that was a pretty dismal time. I think it was just sort of seemed inevitable. There just seemed to be no real fight. Yeah, the regime at the time seemed to have just let go of the club. It just lost interest. Financially, it was all over the place as usual.
Yeah, it is just a shame because these owners can come in, and it's the type of thing where they can talk a big game. In the case of this guy, it doesn't sound like he had any idea what he was doing whatsoever, or any of the two guys that took over the club and were putting money into it. They didn't know how to run a football club, barely knew about business, didn't know about the context of the nation that they were operating in, about the culture of it. And then it's the type of thing where it's like, right, they can afford to then lose interest, but at the end of the day, they're leaving a club in literal pieces behind them that had to end up folding because they fancied trying something new, or they saw it as like an adventure to try it or something. Do you know what I mean? It's like they can be billionaire owners all they like, but at the end of the day, they're still billionaire owners, regardless of how much good they talk. Do you know what I mean? Like you need to back up these like words with actions as well, and yeah, it's just a whole thing. But that's a conversation for another time on another episode. But yeah, as you said, the club were financially all over the place. The finances weren't good at all. £7 million in debt, and then falling once again into administration around 2009, 2010, if I remember correctly. So things were looking absolutely grim. And how did it feel following the club at this point? Steve, we've talked about it in other episodes, but you basically have to adopt this mindset where you could wake up one day and Chester, the club that you support and that you supported from when you were a kid, could be just gone completely.
You kind of become used to it. I mean, since I've been going, it's always been like a harbinger of doom. You're always into in some trouble. I think there's one season we just started late because they weren't even sure that they'd let us in the league. I remember going to Oxford United and losing 4-0 because the team hadn't even trained. We started the season a couple of games late just because we couldn't even confirm that we were going to compete. I think we did have a points deduction one year. I remember optimistically thinking we were heading towards 0 points at one point. That might have been the season that we finally went tits up. I mean, the memories do blur, but yeah, a long periods of absolute misery, administration, point deductions, the whole thing. Yeah, not a great time, as you.
No, not a great time at all. And yeah, eventually the club were, finally expelled from the conference, put out of their misery, if you want to put it that way. And after that, sadly, Chester City came to an end, and that was it. That was the club gone because of this financial mismanagement. They ceased to exist completely after they were expelled from the league, and that was that. But it wasn't the end for the fans, because in the end, everyone managed to rally together, and they didn't want to be left without a club, and they gave birth to the Phoenix Club, didn't they?
Yeah. So I think it was March 2010. Like I say, expunged from the league. So people were giving their points back or taking points off them if we'd beaten them. And so yeah, you sort of left Minister without portfolio, seeing the season out without a football team. But it had been coming for so long that, I mean, people behind the scenes, the fans had been kind of prepared for this, putting together some kind of war chest. I think the chairman who caused all the problems, his famous quote is, "You're having meetings in bingo halls, and you're supposed to be taken seriously." Well, he's the guy who stopped the club's existence over 125 years. I think there was a meeting in a bingo hall. It was the very first meeting, according to CFU, City Fans United. But yeah, eventually got together and formed, as many teams have done from Wimbledon onwards, a Phoenix club. Forced to call themselves Chester FC, so they had to drop the city. Yeah, the Phoenix Club was formed, and at which point you applied to start in some league, and I can't remember what league they put us in, but it was 6 divisions down. Appeal. They actually bumped us up 2 divisions on appeal. They just said, because we said, look, we're going to bring 2,000 fans every week, and you're basically putting us in a pub league. It's not tenable. I mean, other teams were quite annoyed. I mean, understandably, perhaps. But yeah, they put us in the Northern Prem. That's right, I think. Away at Warrington Town, who are perversely we're going to be playing next season. They're in the National League North. We got a 1-1 draw at Warrington Town. I think I've got the team sheet up there somewhere. And that was it. Chester FC was born with a big following. Pissed the league, to be honest. We were getting full houses, getting 5,000 people in to watch football that low down, whatever division we call it, Division 10, is it, or something?
Yeah, something like that. I'm not too sure myself, but 3 successive championships, all with 100 points on the board and at least 100 goals. So you have absolutely steamrolled your way back up the divisions, and within 4 years you made it back to the conference. Must have been such a determination with the fans and the club and the players all alike to make a statement and get back to where you belong. And we've seen this with other clubs, particularly in England, it has to be said, who have went defunct, and a Phoenix club has come back. The management, the fans, the board, the supporters trust, and the players, and whoever else associated involved with the club, everyone is just singing from the same hymn sheet, and it's just absolutely exceptional.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't massively behind it at the start. I just thought, Christ, Chester City is gone. I mean, that's the other team I've always known. I just thought, I can't be, you look at some of these places, you never heard of them. All in the north. I don't even live in Chester. I live in London. All these games are, in the wilds of Christ knows. It's like going back to the Lancashire League where we started, like the combination leagues. But we went to some wild places. And it's an experience. You get to see different parts of the country. They've all got a Wetherspoons. You get to see some different. I mean, for ground hoppers, we're ticking off grounds. It's an absolute boon. I've cruised past 100 odd grounds quite easily. I think helped by those 3 seasons. Yeah, all under a guy called Neil Young, who's I don't know if he's still at Marine. Yeah, great manager. I think I did interview him as well. Just knew his business, knew his lower leagues, recruited well. We also had a decent amount of money from getting. You're getting 5,000 at home, and nobody else, other teams were getting 500 at home. Probably. taking big followings away. Oh yeah, good times. 3 championships in a row. You kind of get used to it. Trophies being won. But the first championship, we won it on goal difference. Slightly just before smartphones became generic, so people were trying to find the result of this other game. I think we actually went up by 2 goals. We lost the game at a place called Garfer near Leeds, and I think the team who were going for second, they won 9-3 or something. But the guy who scored the other couple of goals for them, was given the freedom of Chester. They 2 goals that put it up on goal difference. Then the next 2 leagues, I think we just pissed through it. We were home and hosed by Easter with the National League North, I think. Then back in the conference for 4 years. Did we survive in that?
Yeah, I think you said a wee bit of a wobble at one point, but you're back in the National League North now, or thereabouts. I think it's either the National League North or the National League itself. I think I'm right in saying.
National League North, yeah. I mean, the last few seasons, some seasons over the COVID period, I think there'll be 2 seasons that have not been completed. We did make a playoff one season at Altrincham, and because of my association with the non-league paper, I was the only to go. There's a really tragic picture of me just stood on my way and with a mask on the Chester top. It's literally the only away fan there. We lost that playoff. So, yeah, we finished 16th, and we're pretty much getting up to date now. So the season just gone. We've got no manager. We give it to 28-year-old Callum McIntyre, who's been on the youth scene. He's basically a fan. Involved in the youth side, and then managed Runcorn Linnets to a playoff. Got him in, and astonishingly, he took us to 3rd place with a 1 away defeat the entire season. A phenomenal record. This has been the best season in years. Yeah.
And am I right in saying that you guys are still a fan-owned club, yeah?
Yeah, I signed up to the CFU again. You just pay your 10 quid a year, but at this time of year, they do this thing called Boost the Budget, where just whatever you can get, and they've literally raised. I think they're a couple of quid shy of £100,000 they've raised, just to buy players and sign players on. Just give hand over fist what they can to the club to keep them going.
The next natural stopping point in my mind, if something is taken away from you like that, in this case a football club which was very much community centric, taken away by guys who had loads of money and no idea what they were doing, the next natural step is for the fans to reclaim that. And I think it's really important, because what you see again in a wider sense is a lot of places moving towards really community focused projects, energy initiatives, food banks for instance, as a means to support each other. And the same happens with football clubs. Like, they're formed with the community in mind and for it to be fan owned, because there's this sort of big, it's not, and it's kind of getting to the point where it's becoming a little bit more organised, but people really want to push for fan ownership because they're fed up with money. They're fed up with big money football. They just don't want these people in charge of their clubs because they know it only ever ends in one way.
Absolutely right. Well, I was about to say that the logo on our shirt is our city, our club, our community. That there is something about doing it organically with a fan as manager, all the fans chipping in. I mean, obviously, I would say this, run this and have billions of pounds and sign players from the Championship.
No, of course. I think the thing is, though, that, and I know that Wrexham are your guys' historic rivals, obviously, but it's kind of been touched on a couple of times in this episode that, obviously Wrexham are now bankrolled. They're owned by Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, I think his name is, the Always Sunny actor, and they've had huge amounts of money pumped into the club. So I've not tried to touch on them too much in this episode because they've been getting a lot of media attention as it is, it's just it's personally not for me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think the majority of people who operate in the same kind of circle as we do in our project, do the people that we speak with in X and the contributors to our project, would prefer the model that Chester have than Wrexham's new one. But at the same time, there's different ways of doing it successfully. You can get owners who are very supportive of the things going on in a club's community, and to be fair, Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds have been active within the community in Wrexham, but it can't be forgotten, as I said earlier on, they are still billionaire owners. When they get bored or decide they don't want to do this anymore, they can very easily just pull the rug from under Wrexham. They can afford to just take the money away, and that's a lot of the time why we end up having these kinds of discussions on the podcasts. Do you think, Steve, that in the club's current state, you can get back into the Football League in the next few seasons with, the current model that you guys are operating?
Well, I mean, that's the dream. Back to Football League is a dream, but I mean, the longer it goes on, it's been 14 years now. It's been a while. I mean, that does seem a long way away. Home games away from being back in the National League. It just a lot of things have to fall into place. The season we just had, we had a superb goalkeeper. We had a guy called Harry Tyre on loan from Everton. He probably made his 20 points. We had a striker, Kurt Willoughby, probably another 20 points. He's just gone to Oldham, and the keeper's gone back to Everton. So we've got to replace those. It's going to be difficult to get out this season. Scunthorpe seems to have been throwing a huge amount of money at it. I mean, I know it's a cliche, but these are difficult leagues to get out of. Only one team goes up automatically.
No, I know, and I understand that as well. It is quite similar to like Tier 5 in Scotland, the Highland and Lowland League. They're very, very difficult divisions to make your way out of, especially if you fall into them from the Scottish Football League. Just like the jump in resources and kind of quality of opposition is huge from League 2 down into the Highland and Lowland League. I don't actually think there's been a case of a club falling into them while the new sort of pyramid restructure has been in place. I don't think there's been a case of a club falling into them who's then come back up, which just really goes to show you sometimes it can be a wee bit of a death knell. And we've lost clubs like Albion Rovers and Brechin have went down East Stirlingshire and stuff, and some of them have even went further and ended up back in what used to be the junior leagues, so like Tier 6 and down. So they can be very, very difficult leagues to get out of. So I know that myself. And you've actually got a book out as well of your travel supporting Chester, don't you, Steve? So do you just want to give that a little mention before we finish up for tonight?
Well, I haven't mentioned stuff. I did actually go to every game one season and wrote a book about it. Yeah, the 2016-17 season, we were still in the National League, and the guy that used to drive me to the games, he texted me and said, I'm emigrating to France at the end of the season. And thanks. So just as a madcap scheme, I thought we'd do every single game. So flew to Gateshead for the first game, lost 3-0. Just toured around the country, mainly me, and became known as the driver. And I ended up writing a book about it, The Card, which was nominated for the William Hill 2018 Sports Book of the Year, which I don't like to mention. So yeah, that's in there.
I think sorry, you go.
Go on. I was just saying they sell it in the club shop, which is nice. Just to have a little bit of me is in the club every time I go there. I sign a few copies and do a quick stock check. But yeah, 5 years on, people, I still get the odd message saying people are enjoying it. It's a pretty bleak tour of Britain watching a shit football team, to be honest. But if that's anyone's thing, it's available on Amazon and from Ockley Books.
Nice one. Well, I'll certainly make sure to keep an eye out for that and pick it up if I'm able to. And I urge all of our listeners to do so as well. If you want to hear the footballing travels and tales of a man who followed his lower league club up and down England for a season. It sounds absolutely brilliant. I think it's it kind of captures the spirit of what we like talking about on this show. Just kind of following your club, no matter the division, no matter what opposition you're playing against. Just following your team and supporting them. Not it being about money or fame or whatever. So yeah, we'll certainly pick that up. But I think that'll do us for tonight. Steve, thank you very much for coming on the podcast to talk a little bit about Chester FC and Chester City FC. It's been a really good episode, and I think we could probably do a follow-up at some point with a couple of the other themes that we've mentioned here, because we've got a couple of episodes like this now, such as with Chester, Aldershot, KSK Beveren as well, where it's a similar sort of story. Not so much with KSK Beveren, but we've kind of been through all of the kind of elements and all of the different layers at once that can kind of go into this, and touched on them a wee bit. So I definitely think there's things that we could come back to, particularly Sealand Road, and former grounds is one that I'd look to touch on eventually. Of course, thank you very much to all of our listeners who tuned in once again for this episode. If there's something that you would like us to cover, then please get in touch with us. You can DM us on X, that's @_footyheritage, or you can email us at hello@footballheritage.co.uk. We're more than happy to cover anything related to football history or heritage, whether that's identity, fan cultures, fan movements, club identities, club histories, place, you name it, lost clubs, just get in touch with us and we'll have a chat with you. We'll see if it's something that we can fit in the project. Our website is footballheritage.co.uk. That's where all of our written content goes. If that's something you maybe prefer doing, then please get in touch with us as well. But otherwise, if you're able to, please read the content that our fantastic contributors put up there. There's some really, really wonderful stuff. They go out every Wednesday or once a week at the moment. So yeah, please go and check that out if you're able to. But for now, Steve, say goodbye.
Cheers, thanks a lot. Up the Seals, up the Blues, up the former city.
Up the former city. That's not what goodbye sounds like, Steve. No, cheers. Thanks very much for coming on again. It's goodbye from me as well, and we'll see you all again next week. Goodbye.